It is time for our African View debate here
Yeah,
on Channel Africa.
absolutely. Today on the African View debate, we are speaking about an outcry on social media where people are saying there is a shift, a so-called shift, because I don't think social media is evidence, but people who are there are saying there is a behavior of Gen Zs on offline where they're seeing something that is a shift to a conservative type of behavior, from dress codes to religion and morality, policing. There seems to be a rising conservatism amongst the African youth. The debate today is Gen Z's rising conservative culture regressive to liberalism, or is it restoring moral decay in Africa? Helping us on this debate, we have Lethabo Maluke, who is a dynamic and insightful commentator, a content creator, and podcaster. And also we have Anonymous on the line, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's start with you, Lethabo. On this question we're asking, is Gen Z's rising conservative culture regressive to liberalism, or is it restoring moral decay in Africa? What's your take?
The rise in conservatism is very regressive because it clashes with our progressive constitution, and that's where I want to start, right? South Africa's constitution is one of the most progressive in the entire world. It enshrines values like equality, freedom, diversity, which often conflict with conservative ideologies because they prioritize rigid traditions and hierarchical structures, which are often patriarchal. For example, right, under conservatism, it enforces outdated gender roles that restrict individual freedoms or marginalizes groups like the LGBTQ plus community, right? It undermines the constitutional vision of an inclusive society. Conservatism pushes against same-sex marriage and women's reproductive rights, autonomy, agency, and ability to express themselves, which contradicts the Bill of Rights, which guarantees equality regardless of your gender, your orientation, or your belief. So that's where I want to start, yes.
Okay, staying with you, I want to just unpack what being conservative actually means, Lethabo, before we go to Anonymous.
So, with the current way conservatism is playing out with my generation, is that a lot of women are being pushed to be deeply male-centered, right? They're being encouraged to reject the purpose and
I'm asking for
plan
a
of
definition, not what it's doing. Well, how do you define it? Sure.
having very political views that are so rigid that the only way you can express them is by seeking someone else to instruct you as opposed to yourself. That's the best way I see conservatism, because you are the one who strips yourselves of your personal freedom.
Okay,
That's
all
how I
right.
see it.
Sure, okay. Let
Yeah.
me come to you, Anonymous, as we continue the conversation. What's your take on this question?
Well, hi, Benjamin. Thank you for having me. For me, conservatism is not necessarily a rigid thinking, but it's a way that we are morally restoring the African continent. I've seen many videos of concern on social media, the concern of Gen Z social conservatism, but what I haven't seen is a viewpoint on why young people have decided to be conservative. The world moves in cycles, and every cycle is necessary at the time. Young people didn't wake up and decide to be conservative overnight, but the phases of generations before that have sparked today's movement, and that is where I want to begin.
And how do you define being conservative?
For me, conservatism is a traditional way of thinking. It's not a rigid way of thinking. It's you going back to your roots, what your parents taught you, what you grew up with, and how you move in the society that you grew up with.
Well, it's a great start to this conversation. Let's come back to you, Lethabo. Now that we've defined and we've seen which side both of you stand on, what are some of the particular, I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't particularly on social media where this seems to be playing out. What are the particular examples of this conservatism that yourself and many others who have shown concern to this are seeing?
In person or online?
Both
I
in
just want
person and
clarity.
online. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. Firstly, online, there's algorithm bias for women and I guess men who have very, I don't know, inflammatory conversations, right? We live in the era of rage bait where you get rewarded for being contrarian. And often how people express that is by being very traditional. So a lot of people, when you see how women express themselves, the fact that women can legally get abortions, right? Gay people can marry, but more importantly, people have the option to move away from religion. A lot of people descend into this chaos because I do understand that we're in a recession. It's one of the hardest economic times. And during that, people lean more towards religion because it's more about praying for prosperity and abundance, not really about spiritual growth. And so a lot of people love to conflate that with being true to African morality, forgetting that African morality is dynamic and not static, right? It adheres to our challenges. It's supposed to resist colonial oppression and embrace reconciliation post-apartheid. But unfortunately, we have a lot of young Black people going online saying that they feel like they could have thrived better under apartheid, or young women saying that they want to date men or marry men who will lead them. They want to get degrees for the sake of saying, my husband has a wife with a degree and not I need to educate myself. More men are saying they want women who will be submissive and subordinate. But I often argue that I don't think a lot of them are interested in true companionship. They just want the benefits of having, and I'm sorry to get a bit explicit, but someone who is an unpaid sex worker living in your house. And even in public spaces like clubs, there's a rise in hostility towards women, how women are treated at the door, in the club, in the events, how women are spoken to, how women are communicated through, even in professional settings. There's this undermining of looking at women as incapable of thought. And it's very concerning because that's also why we remain as the GBV and rape capital of the world, because people are naturally inclined to be hostile to women because they think it's traditional. Yeah.
And how would you, those examples, how do you link them to being the cause of being conservative? I'm still trying to make up that link.
Okay. So, being conservative, unfortunately, reinforces patriarchal structures, right? Because it's framed as the natural order. And I understand that we are living in a post-apartheid South Africa. It's the first time being Gen Z. It's the first time trying to live through a free country, and 30 years is not enough. Women are still the first to be a matric holder. People are still the first to do so many things. And because of that, people don't know what to do with that personal freedom. It's scary, right? It's very terrifying. And I feel like when you are conservative, you think the only way to maintain the natural order is if you stay on that path. I must marry by this age, do this, and I must do that. But that's the thing. We're supposed to be dynamic, not static, and adapt to these challenges.
All right, this is very interesting. Great takes for both of you as the beginning of this debate is going. Do stay on the line, both of you. Are going to take a short break and come back and unpack this particular debate. Don't forget that you can also participate as you're listening to Lethabo and Anonymous debate this particular conversation. You can have your say on our X handle at Channel Africa 1. We have a poll there saying Gen Z in Africa is showing a rise in conservative values around dress, religion, and morality. Is this regression from progress? Is it a moral reset? Is it just identity searching? Or is it a generational clash? Let's hear what you have to say.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa
On the move.
It is the African View debate right here on the Move. Today's topic is Gen Z's rising conservative culture, regressive to liberalism, or is it restoring moral decay in Africa? We're speaking about this, debating this topic is Lethabo Maluke, commentator, content creator, and podcaster, also known for their engaging perspectives on cultural and social issues impacting Africa, with a keen interest in the intersection of youth, culture, morality, and societal change. We also have Anonymous in this conversation that feels that moral decay has been the biggest contributing factor to many of the social ills that we face in today's African society, and they are here to debate this matter further. Anonymous, let me come to you. In your opening statement, you spoke about morality and moral decay. Let's speak about why you think that conservativeness, or Gen Z's conservativeness, that, as you said, didn't just happen overnight, has been a natural progress of things. How do you think it sought to deal with the issues of the moral ills that we face in our societies?
I feel conservatism helps deal with the moral decay in our society, because if you look at the youth today, they are all obsessed with hookup culture, drinking, smoking heavily, sometimes not even dressing appropriately outside and in front of younger children. So being a conservative just helps you to come back and have a moral compass, and helps you to see what you can and cannot do in public,
I see. I'm so glad that in this conversation today, we have two Gen Zs who are actually having this conversation, because it's not a conversation that's happening from the outside in.
Sure.
It is those Gen Zs who are saying, hey, I think this is right and I think this is wrong. Let's bring it back to you, Lethabo. You heard what Dumi said. There are a lot of social ills that we face today. Gender-based violence is one of them. We heard there are campaigns here at the SABC dealing with that. And we do see some of this behavior happening with young people everywhere, right? The drinking, the smoking, hookup culture. Those are part of a generational impacts that have happened not just now, but in many years. Do you think that what Anonymous is saying is right, to say that, hey, maybe Gen Zs aren't just waking up and deciding to do this. They're seeing a need for moral values to come back into our society?
Okay, so I disagree and agree, because I fully understand what Anonymous is saying. There is truth to a lot of what Anonymous is saying about the fact that Gen Z definitely has an alcohol problem, right? And it's because alcoholism is branded as simply having fun, because it's more accessible, sometimes affordable, depending on who you are. The fact that we have all these drink specials bombarding us every day. There's a mojito special every day. There's a happy hour. And also, it's become a part of social media culture to flex with how much alcohol you can buy, how many bottles you can own. So I do think that Anonymous is on the right path with that. There's definitely a glorification of alcoholism, but masking it as just being young and having fun. But also, even within hookup culture, I think it's very funny that Gen Z kind of like is on the side of sexual liberation, but we are also part of the generation that is scared to get diagnosed or tested for STDs. So I also agree with Anonymous on that. Like, we have this fear of having genuine interest in our sexual health, because I think sexual liberation also includes protecting yourself and protecting your potential sexual partners. But Gen Z still is stigmatized against those things while simultaneously participating in hookup culture. I think that's weird.
That's interesting that you say that. And I want to bring it back to you, Anonymous, and find out your thoughts, because I wanted to dissect some of the things that Lethabo associated with being conservative. I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, I'm a churchgoer. But some of the things that he said kind of were things that I also don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with oppressing the LGBTQ plus community as a conservative. I'm against the abuse of women and mistreating women as a conservative. I'm not conforming to a patriarchal system as a Christian. So I think at times we take negative connotations of what's happening to society and we link it to being conservative. Do you think that some of those linkages that Lethabo was highlighting around the fact that, conservatives are patriarchal, conservatives are people who resent the LGBTQ plus community. Do you think those are fair stereotypes of the conservative groupings?
Yes, Benjamin. I think there are stereotypes, but I am also against the abuse of the LGBT community, the abuse of women and children. But I think it's associated with conservatism because of the origins of it. Like when you look at the history of conservatism, it's mostly associated with religion, and religion is mainly patriarchal. And in the olden days, it was said that the man is the head, the woman is the neck. So the man being the head, you listen to the man, you become submissive, and you agree to the abuse that you are subjected to.
Sure.
So yes, I do agree that being a conservative, you do get stereotyped in that way, that you are for abuse, you are for all the negative stereotypes that you are subjected to. So yes, I know.
I see. So let's get some of both your closing statements. I'll continue with you, Anonymous. In light of the debate that we're having today, and you saying that Gen Z's conservatism, rising conservatism, is restoring moral decay in Africa, give me your closing statement on your assertion.
Conservatism may be seen as a problem, or rather backwards to liberals, but because we are so closed off, Conservatism may be seen as a problem, or rather backwards to liberals, due to the traditional ideologies that it holds, and how hard our ancestors worked for us to get liberated. But in a world filled with many viewpoints on how to live, where you should be at a certain age, being conservative saves you from being pulled in different directions and stipulations about your life.
Well, that's a great final statement. You know, your assertion saying, hey, there's so many things going on here, and that choice by young people to be conservative is actually saving them from being pulled in different directions. They're asserting themselves as who they are and to move in the world in a particular way. Let's get your closing statements as well, Lethabo.
Okay, so my closing statement is heavily inspired by this book called Power and Faith by Bonso Pilani, which investigates how the evangelical church, is shaping our democracy. And I think a lot of why we see this rise in conservatism is because we have a lot of Christian right-wing groups being funneled into the country, and how they do it is mostly through the mega churches. I mean, you see a lot of young people who are now anti-LGBT, or like ex-LGBT, as in they were once gay, but now they're talking about how they were saved. So we're living through this rise of Christianity not as spiritual enlightenment, but as a component to white supremacy, and that often deals with, restricting our movements, restricting our expression, because the more conservative you are, the more easier it is for you to align with white supremacy. So I think the rise in conservatism is regressive because honestly, you're always teetering on the line of white supremacy. Like, you're always flying too close to the sun. It goes from I'm protecting myself by not doing XYZ to you becoming very internally anti-Black very quickly. So that's my closing statement.
Well, the Gen Zs have spoken. Thank you to both of you, Lethabo, as well as Anonymous, for participating in this debate. And your views were incredible on both sides. Yeah. And your assertions on what you see and what you see as a reflection of your own generation really is, amazing to hear. Thank you to both of you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,